Welcome to the Music for the Soul podcast, where we talk honestly about difficult things. This is a place where music, hope, and healing come together. I'm Becky Nordquist.
And I'm Steve Seiler. We are so pleased to have with us today Tammy Daughtry. And Tammy's ministry is called Co-Parenting International, and it's coparentinginternational.com. Welcome, Tammy.
Well, hello. It's great to be with you both.
Hi, Tammy. I am really excited about this conversation because it is something that is near and dear to my heart, which I am a stepmom. We have a blended family as well. And I have met many, many people all over the country that I believe are really going to enjoy the conversation today too. So you are a champion for children in complicated families. And if we know anything about blended families, it can be extremely complicated. So I would love to jump right in and have you share with us how you found yourself on the road of blended family.
Boy, that's a 3-hour conversation. So let me see if I can summarize.
Cliff notes?
Yeah. I will say this. I was raised in a blended family, actually in a couple of them. And then I was married for 8 years, had a daughter in that marriage. We were in 5 years of therapy because I so specifically did not ever want to be divorced. That was I'm the overachiever in the family, first Christian, first to go to college, first to do a lot of things, and not the only, but I was trying to do life very different than some of my extended family, my biological family. And so I found myself at a fork in the road, becoming a single mom. And my daughter's father and I had been in counseling for 5 years. And we actually worked with that counselor for the first year of our separation as we moved towards divorce. And I started asking the question, where are the resources for co-parenting? Where are the books, the events, the videos, the life-giving content? Because I knew that I needed more tools as I was stepping into that new season of life. And I had a lot of experiences that I knew what a child experienced in a divorced family, but I also wanted to know from an adult lens, like, how do we do this in a whole and healthy way? And my daughter's dad and I, we agreed on a lot of things. We both love the Lord. We're both Christians. We're believers. And the number one thing we've always agreed on is how much we love our daughter. I knew, though, divorcing and moving to 2 households was going to be hard on her. It was going to be different. And I was looking for tools. And quite honestly, it was the year of 2000. And that counselor said to me, one of the greatest gifts he ever gave was, Tammy, he said, I don't think you need to read a book about co-parenting. He said, I think someday you're going to write one. And to be honest, as I was facing a divorce, the biggest failure of my life, feeling like I was, there was no hope ahead, to have that little bit of hope spoken to me by the man who knew our family the best was quite honestly a beautiful gift. I never dreamed I'd write a book. That was not on my radar. But I was grateful because he said, Tammy, I've been a counselor 15 years and I've never seen 2 people make these co-parent choices that you're making for your daughter. He said, Angelia is going to thrive. She's going to be okay. And to be honest, I walked out of that room that day with tears of failure, yes, because it's not what I ever dreamed or desired, and yet tears of hope that he saw there was still hope for our daughter. And so as far as my interest in all of this, it's really been a personal quest. And then I'll fast forward and say that about 5 years later, I went to grad school to get a master's in marriage and family to really dig into high conflict families and help, adults communicate. And along there in 2003, started Co-Parenting International, which was a place for single parents and step parents to find hope and help when life is complicated. And now I do a lot of work around that topic, but it really started, in 2000 as a place of, or a need. I needed help. I needed a direction. I needed some tools, and I couldn't find anything. That was life-giving and Christ-centered. So eventually God said, go create it.
So helpful and so very needed. There is not enough resources, even still, to speak to the great depth of need that is in the realm of blended families and co-parenting. And a lot of those situations are incredibly difficult to navigate. And you probably know that now in being in a therapist type position and with all the people that you come across and speak with So how did you guys meet?
Steve,
I,
well, I don't know. You want to tell that one, Steve?
it was a conference and I needed to copy something. And I went into the copy center at the Gaylord Hotel. That's what it was called then. Is it still called the Gaylord? I can't even, they changed the name so many times. But you and I were in there and we're waiting for the copy machine and started having a conversation. I think you were doing some event planning then. And we hit it off and have kept in touch ever since. It wasn't too long after that that we wrote a song together that we're going to be talking about here in a minute.
Yes, yes. Well, and I have to say, Music for the Soul is what I learned of you that day. I was so deeply impressed. And to be honest, even the last hour before this interview, I talked about your resources to someone. So we've had a long friendship and you're doing such important work on so many hard topics. You're bringing hope and help to that. And yes, we did write a song together, and then we've done some events together along the way. I haven't done this in a while, but I did a citywide event in Nashville years ago on Valentine's Day to try to bring hope to single parent families. And we invited parents and children. And my vision in everything I've ever done is trying to bring hope to hurting parents and then be a voice for the kids caught in the middle. And quite honestly, some of the significant seasons we go through in co-parenting, there's always the first year or two right after the separation, whether it's a divorce. Sometimes, in our culture now, a lot of families don't get married. Adults don't get married. So they might live together and then move apart. But that initial divide, the first year or two, it's hard on everybody. It's hard on the kids. It's hard on the adults. And that's the time that we really try to connect with people, whether it's at live events or through coaching and work online or in our counseling center. We want to just say to people, there's a way through this hard season, and there is hope for you. There's hope for your children. Statistics show that your children can thrive even if they come from a divided family. And that's why we do what we do, is trying to really give people tools so that everyone can grieve and process, but get to a healthier place so that children can still have an amazing childhood.
One of the things I think that comes to mind when you talk about families dividing is adults, even though it's challenging, they've lived enough life to know that things can get better, even when they're really in a bad place. Whereas kids don't have any experience to create appropriate expectations. And I think your song idea, and we'll go ahead and play a little bit here in a second, for a song called Still a Family, kind of instills in the child that hope for you're not losing your family. It's going to be different, but here's what's still going to happen. So let's play just a little bit of that right now.
Still a family, and that's never gonna change. Although your world is different now, my love is the same. I'm still your daddy, precious child, please believe nothing can separate you and me. We're still a family.
The co-writers on this song, Becky, were Tony Wood, Scott Crepane, myself, and Tammy. So a lot of fun to work with my prayer group buddies on this. But I want to mention right now, because I know you've got a live event coming up here in the fall, and I know that one of your hopes is actually to get this song finally recorded. We just played the demo of Scotty singing the second verse where he's the dad, but the problem is on the demo, he's also the mom. So that's going to confuse people. So we got to get this song recorded. If this is an issue you care about, you could donate to Co-Parenting International and earmark it for creating the song, the final recording of Still a Family.
Yes, thank you for saying that, Steve. Yeah, we are celebrating 20 years this year with Co-Parenting International. We officially launched in 2003. And so we're having a big celebration to earmark that, kind of look at all that we've done in the past, and then set the vision for the next 20 years. And so anybody listening that's interested in, being a volunteer or getting involved with our organization, you can always reach out to us at coparentinginternational.com. And no matter where you live in the world, we will get you connected to a way you can help further the hope for divorced and remarried families. So yeah, getting that song recorded would be a beautiful gift to get done. And then the whole world could really enjoy that. So,
And music is so powerful. And I know honestly in my own journey that music helped carry me through. I did not know about your ministry, but man, could I have used it as a stepmom. And we sadly did not have a situation where all the parties were willing to work together and you can't make other people to come along. So I'm
Right.
wondering, and that's pretty common. I mean, pretty common where, there might be one parent that's willing to work and have good boundaries and love well, and the other absolutely won't, or they outright target the other parent. And there's some real things, some painful things, and I am sure that we have listeners right now saying, well, that's really nice if they all can work together, but I can't make my ex-spouse come along for the ride here, and there's a lot of bitterness and stuff. What could you offer for them in this? How do they go about still trying to create a great childhood for their kids? How do you love the kids when you have polar opposite household?
Well, it's a loaded question for sure. I would say any parent that's listening, no matter how difficult or uncooperative your co-parent is, the thing, you can't make them do the right thing or stop doing the wrong thing. That is out of your control. And sometimes over time that can simmer down, but sometimes it doesn't. So the thing I say to parents to focus on is what can you control? And what you can control is how you model to your child or children what a mature, loving, strong, wonderful parent looks like, talks like, and acts like. And there are some common places that this is very challenging for co-parents. So I want to give a couple of practical tips. One of the most frequent things that co-parents experience when they're divided, when they've got a child or children coming back and forth, is what we call the handoff or the child exchange. And the interesting thing, children go through this, depending what age they are when mom and dad divide, they can go through this experience anywhere from 200 to 800 times in their childhood. I actually did the math on some families I'm working with recently, and their kids, they've got 3 kids under the age of 5, and they are literally going to have this experience over 800 times before they graduate and go to college. So when you think about that handoff, the adults never like it. There's, the adult that's saying goodbye to their child, it is not their favorite time of the week. No matter how much your kids should enjoy their other parent, it's healthy to have their other parent in their life. That part of saying goodbye is hard on adults. But the most important thing I want to point out is think about your child's experience. And what you can control is your emotional cue, your interaction with that child before they get ready to go to the other house, and your facial expression, your body language, and your tone of voice. Those 3 things, which are hard to manage when you're seeing your co-parent, they're not very nice. Sometimes they act ridiculous. You're saying goodbye to your child, which you're not really excited about. It takes a lot of intentionality and building of a muscle inside, a motivated muscle to say, I'm going to think about my child more than anybody in this next 10 minutes. And I'm going to do my very best to model for my child what a loving, respectful parent looks like and acts like. And so what that might sound like to saying goodbye to a child is, and I'll just tell you, I went through this hundreds of times with my daughter, and my intentionality was always, Angelia, I'm so glad you're going to have time with your dad and all your dad's family. And I can tell you the hardest goodbye is at long holidays. So, we're in the summer when you get a 2-week vacation with each family. And I would try to think about where she was going, what she was doing, and really talk that up. Because what I wanted her to know is that 2 things. She had my permission to go love her dad and to enjoy his family, to enjoy the grandparents, the cousins, the cruise they went on, the travels they experienced. I wanted her to know it was okay with me that she went. And even more so, I wanted her to know that I was okay while she was gone. And that's a really tough thing especially for women, to be honest. We don't compartmentalize emotion very well. And so to say goodbye, to feel like, oh, she's getting to go on her first cruise and I don't get to see it, right? Those are things happening inside of us when we wave goodbye. But the gift we give our children, hopefully hundreds of times, is a happy handoff so that they know it's okay to go and enjoy that other family and that I don't have to worry about the parent I'm leaving. Because the emotional experience for children is quite complicated at that exchange. They're quite often very excited to see the other family. But if the parents make that about the adults and not about the child, it can become a 5-minute traumatic experience for a child. So we want to always think about, how do I show up at the handoff? Do I show up and make it happy, or do I make it really hard on my kids? And the last thing I'll say on that real quick, and I love analogies because, parents can say, Tammy, that sounds good, but that's really almost impossible. So then I'll say, well, what about the first time you took your child maybe to an overnight camp, or you took them to school and they were nervous about starting at a new school? What did you do there? Well, you probably got down on their eye level. You changed your tone of voice. You started to really empower them and cheer for them and say, hey, buddy, you're going to have a great time at camp. You're going to go make friends. You're going to get to go, maybe you're going to go paddleboarding. Maybe you're going to go hiking, or you talk about school, right? You're going to meet new teachers and you're going to make friends. And so when we're really trying to help our children thrive, that's what we sound like, right? That's our focus, is helping them succeed at what they're doing next. That same intentionality is one of the most beautiful gifts that a parent can give when they're exchanging their child, giving that child the emotional support, the happiness and the joy that they get to go and experience time with the other family. Now, the trick to that, I will say, I'm a high extrovert, and being left alone is not my happy place. And so one of the tricks to that is also having a fun plan or having a game plan for your alone time. So that when you do wave goodbye and you do that Academy Award winning act of being joyful and excited, right? When inside you're really sad, you're sad you're missing to see them for a few days or a few weeks. You might even be concerned about them when they're away from you. But you give them that gift of joy, and then you come in your house. And if you're an introvert, you might really be happy to have a few days of quiet. If you're an extrovert, it's quite scary to come into an empty house at a time you're hurting. So trying to plan ahead, have a game plan that gives you meaningful experiences for yourself while your children are away, so that when you're waving goodbye, you have a game plan for yourself. So that's just one of the tough things I want to say today, and just hopefully give some insight to somebody on what they can control. And that is how you show up at handoffs and how you handle your alone time. Those are two areas that your co-parent has nothing to do with. It's all about you. And you get to model that for your kids, so that hopefully as they grow up, they'll look back and remember the parent that always made it easy, right? They never made it hard for them to go to the other house. They didn't say horrible things at the handoff, or they didn't act in a way that made the child feel guilty for leaving them. Instead, they'll look back and go, gosh, hopefully both parents, but at least one parent, always gave them the freedom to love the other one, and gave them the okay to say goodbye. And they didn't have to worry about taking care of their other parent. So that's a gift that you can control and you can give your kids, no matter what the other parent does.
You just hit on something that I actually heard in, I think, one of your other podcast interviews, or some interview that I heard you in. Maybe it was your hubby or something, about giving permission to love everybody. And I know as a stepmom and other step parents out there, a lot of women that I talk to as stepmoms, they come in, and I did certainly, to love my husband's children like my own, and to do for them like I do for my bloodborne children. That's just the person I am. I love really hard and fierce, and, mama bear, boy, don't mess with my babies. I'm a man, But, you can't always make people receive the love that you have to give. But what I loved, and I believe it makes all the difference, because my children, my biological children, they had a stepmom very soon. And I always wanted them to have a good relationship with her. And I remember saying, it is okay for you to love her. It's okay for you to call her mom if you want to. Nothing will ever change the fact that I birthed you. And people will be able, you will have all sorts of mothers in your life that will pour into you. And she didn't end up, that marriage didn't work out for them, but they did. And I really think that freed them. You don't have to worry about how I feel about that. I want you to be free to do that. And it really ended up to be a nice thing. And they're still friends with some of those friends that they made, and parts of the family that they made from that marriage with their dad. But, I just love how you say it's okay to give them permission to enjoy and love you both, and enjoy and love, if there's a new, I like to call it bonus parent, or bonus, they're my bonus children, because I see them as a bonus and I love them. And, I've always I've always tried to love them well. It's not been easy. We've had a hard road. And I know there's a lot of people out there as step parents that are hurting and saying, what's my role in the co-parenting part? Because I have them as much as their biological other parent. And sometimes that doesn't do well. I mean, sometimes the situation can get really volatile, even unsafe.
Well, Becky, I want to mention real quick on behalf of, because I'm a stepmom, or I like to say bonus mom as well. I'm a bonus mom to three. I did remarry in 2009, an amazing man who sadly was a widower. So hard for their family. So there's no, that part I still wish never had happened to them. But the Lord gave us a chance to build a family together. So we blended 4 kids in 2009 that one was my biological child and the other my bonus kids, as I would say. And now we're 14 years down the road. And anyway, but what I want to say real quick about the stepmom scenario, I grew up with a stepmom and she was in my life legally, I guess, as my stepmom for over 30 years. She's not married to my dad anymore, but she's still my stepmom. And I can remember being a teenage kid who would go there. And I know a couple things. I disrupted her world a lot. I would show up with my agenda as a teenager, which was, I don't want to hang out with this family. I want to go roller skating. I want to hang out with my cousins, right? I know that I was very disrespectful to her. And I've apologized to her profusely as an adult because I felt very empowered to be rude to her, unfortunately. And I'm not, trying to cast blame on my other parent, but I know that I felt empowered to not listen, to not follow her rules sometimes, and certainly pulled the card of, well, why do I have to do chores? I don't live here. Why do I have to sweep up after dinner? Your kids made the mess. And here's the tough thing. I never remember her flipping out and losing it with me. She was so consistently loving. She was so patient with me. She was my favorite person to go shopping for school clothes. I loved talking to her about boys. I mean, she was my go-to friend when I was there. But as a child, I know she struggled, and she must have chewed her tongue off 10 times trying to deal with me because I was a tough teenager. So I want to say on behalf of the bio moms who may fuel your stepchildren or your bonus kids with negativity towards you, I apologize on behalf of all of them because it is so unfair. It is so hard. And quite honestly, those kids usually really do love you and they want to love you. They want to have a good relationship, but they have an emotional conflict and what we call a loyalty bind, where they sometimes feel so pulled towards their mom that they don't know how to love you and they don't feel like they can because they don't have her permission. And sadly, that can go on their whole childhood. But I will say, keep showing up, keep loving them, do one thing every time they're with you that you know is important to them. And the one thing Josie did for me, she would make this green bean casserole with the crunchy onions on the top. That was my go-to favorite. She made it every time I came, every other weekend. And it's the long run on this investment. We talk about ROI. We're not going to get a microwave response on that love. Being a stepmom or blended mom to kids who have a complicated relationship and they don't feel like they can love you, they don't feel like their mom is okay that you're in their life, this is going to be a long-term love that's going to grow beautifully as they get older. So be patient for that because it is unfair and it's very hurtful many times. But those kids, they're confused and they're just playing the expected role.
It occurs to me that for a child, that loving their stepmom might actually feel like the betrayal of their birth mom. And what a confusing place for a young person, for any person, but especially for a young person to be.
Yes, you're so right, Steve. That is exactly how sometimes a parent, now dads do this too. So, there may be a stepdad listening who feels like he's trying to give everything he can to his bonus kids. And yet their dad has, maybe told them you can't like him. Who's that guy? I don't trust him. Right. So men do this too, sometimes, but that betrayal is something that sometimes is kind of under the water and not clearly verbalized. But sometimes, Steve, parents are very clear that they do not want their kids to like or love that new step parent or that new girlfriend. And they will say the most hurtful things about those adults. And they're not hurting the adult. What they're doing is they're hurting the child. And so in the work that we do, we're constantly trying to find a way to help families focus on how to help children thrive, not to put them in the middle of these invisible emotional wars. But it's so hard. It's all hard because quite honestly, sometimes a bio mom, she may truly fear that this prettier, younger stepmom, right, might become her children's favorite. And that scares her to death. She fears she's going to be replaced. And so when we are hurting or we're fearful, we don't usually show up in our best self. And so being patient with everyone, and this is a radical thing to say, but whoever is hardest in your blended family, or maybe your current spouse has a former spouse that's really difficult, I actually challenge you to start praying for that person and pray for them to see a bigger picture that their children can love everybody. Those little hearts have a way of growing so big. There's room for aunts, uncles, step siblings, step parents, step grandparents. There's room for everybody. And just pray for that person that seems to be making it the hardest, because probably underneath that, they are hurting and they don't know what to do with it. And they may not have learned how to love in a healthy way, from their own family. We all are an ongoing growth, right, of caring for the healthy stuff from our childhood, or processing the hurts from our childhood and other relationships, and then trying to show up and be a healthy version of ourselves with all the people we're doing life with. And that's a lot of work for all of us. We all get triggered sometime, but I think sometimes the people that are acting the ugliest are hurting the most.
Yes.
And they probably need our compassion and our patience. And that can really be a very challenging thing to do. But the Lord knows and the Lord sees. And he, I believe, will reward those that come from a place of true concern and love for the children. And he'll bless those relationships over time. He will bring beauty, right, from ashes. We just don't always know when, but he will do it. He can do it.
You've used the word intentionality a couple of times, and it seems to me that that's just such a key element here as you plan for how you're going to behave in certain situations. Because whenever we get ambushed emotionally, we strike back. That defensiveness is a self-protection device.
Sure.
And if we can anticipate some of that stuff, like you said, and to be intentional, this is the way I want to behave and love my children and the other people who are difficult. Being prepared for that, I think, has to be helpful.
Yes. And it is like, it's finding new muscles you didn't know existed, of self-control, of intentionality, of showing up and saying hello to people who sometimes never speak back or don't even make eye contact with you. But the other place that people overlap, and it's really hard on kids, is at school functions, right? Kids are coming off of the stage after they've been given an award. They're in the band or the choir, they're playing ball, they're, ballet recitals, dance recitals, and the event ends and all the adults that love them are there. But here's the biggest conflict for them at that moment. They don't know who to hug first. Right. They're so afraid sometimes. If I run to daddy and hug him first, mommy's going to get mad. If I run to mommy and hug her, then daddy's going to just walk out and leave. So kids have this constant assessment of, what do I do? What do I do? How do I not hurt people? I don't want to upset anybody. So for any parent listening, and even if you're not in a family that does co-parenting, somebody who does, help the parents in that family think about one simple thing. And that is, it doesn't matter who they hug first. Right. It does not matter, because even if you were happily married, the dad might be talking to other dads, and the mom might be with moms, and the kid might run up to one, and who would care? What you want to do in that situation is be the parent, whoever they come to. If they go the other parent first, remind yourself it's okay. There is no human way for our child to come out and hug us both at the same time, because we're no longer a married unit. Right. So don't take that personal, and be the parent who, if they do hug you first, says, hey, go over and hug your daddy. Go over and hug your stepmom. Hey, make sure you go and say goodbye to your stepdad's parents. Know the names of all those adults. Go say hi to Grandma Betty. Go hug Uncle Eddie. Be the one who shores that positivity and says to your child in those soccer moments, football, basketball, end of year awards, whatever those are. The kids come off the stage or off the field. Be the parent who is so stable and secure, knowing who you are, that you're the parent the child loves. They don't have to pick a favorite. And those moments are hard on kids. So be the one who says with positivity, hey, babe, go hug your other parent for a little while. Don't worry. And here's the other trick, or not trick, but tip is, unfortunately, a lot of parents, when it's their night to take the child home from those events, there are so many kids that tell me that parent they're going home with just scoops them up and they leave, and they'll literally say, you're with me tonight. And they won't let them go hug the other parent. And that is the most confusing, frustrating thing. And a child is never, well, rarely will a child speak up and say, yes, I want to go hug my other parent. They don't feel like they have the voice to do it. Right. And so even if you're the one who's been acting that way, the next event you go to, you have a chance to start doing it different. And you can change that. And you can be an example that changes the whole experience for your child. And if you've been guilty of that, it's okay to tell your kids you blew it. To say, I didn't realize that maybe when you come off the football field and it's time to go, and I just say, let's go. I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. Maybe it's important for you to go and say hi to your other parent. I've blown it. Forgive me. Right?
Absolutely. Admitting mistakes as a parent is a beautiful thing to be able to do. It's a gift you can give your kids. It really is.
And it's so hard when you're married to your partner, but imagine no longer being with that partner and still blowing it and trying to apologize to your kids about that. That is so hard, but it is one of the sweetest gifts you can give, is showing your child, I think I really haven't been doing this in a great way. I want to try something different. And talk to your kids about it. Be vocal in a positive way. And let them know that, hey, if I blow it like that again, I want you to tell me. I would love to know if I've ever put you in a place that you feel makes it hard on you to love all the people here.
I love how it sounds like what you're saying too. It's that difference between reacting and responding, and really giving thought to, okay, we know these situations are coming. And I need to respond well in this moment. And it's so, like you had said, it's so difficult when you are personally in pain to respond well, because your tolerance level is affected when you've been in pain for a period of time. So this is why it's so important to have ministries like yours and to seek out a really good therapist that specializes in these situations. The one thing that, if I could add something to this conversation, is looking back, what I would do differently. We talked about pouring out to our bonus kids and stuff, and how it's not always returned. And it's a slow cooker process, which I know you've heard. And we've read a few places. It's not a microwave at all. Just be who you were created to be.
Well, in a practical idea that some people might hear this and really want to throw a rock at me, but I would say to the bio parents listening, one of the most interesting, kind things you might consider is, when it's Mother's Day, what if you were to send a card over to your kid's stepmom and just say, thanks for loving our kids. And if you're a bio dad, when Father's Day comes, what if you were to send, now guys don't do it as much, with cards and words, but maybe
Don't send them flowers. No.
Maybe it's a text. Maybe it's not a card for dads, but what if you were to text your kid's stepdad and just say, hey, happy Father's Day. I'm glad you're in their life. I can tell you that's something that people right now say, golly, never, that will never be a thing. I can't ever think of it. But I challenge you to tuck that idea away and try to see, maybe a year from now, give this a different perspective, give it some prayer, and show up in a way that's respectful and kind to all the adults, and try to at least model what that kind of attitude is. And if it's not this year for Father's Day and Mother's Day, maybe next year. Think about, what can you do when you're the bio parent? Your kids love you. There's nobody who's ever going to replace you in a million years. And your kids have space for everybody to love, or to be loved by, and to love them back. And what if you led the way by making that simple gesture to say thank you?
And it's never too late to do that. I think sometimes when, we talked about how when you're really close to a divorce situation, and you're still bleeding from that. And you tend to do things that aren't truly you, right? So,
Sure.
I mean, years later, you may be going, oh my goodness, I am so guilty of trying to sabotage their new marriage, or I'm so guilty of making my kids feel guilty for all this stuff and telling them you're going to be betraying me if you call her mom, or if you love her, it's like you're betraying me. It's never too late to go back and say, I messed up there and I'm
Yeah.
sorry for the pain I caused. So much mercy and grace can flow then, and so much healing if you're just willing to do that.
And
That's awesome.
and kids, I'll say when they get to college, especially, they start to try to figure this stuff out. There's no longer a parenting plan. There's no legal decree that says where they go for Christmas and Thanksgiving and what time on Mother's Day and Father's Day and all that, right? When they're 18, it's up to them. And that, by all regard, is probably the hardest first couple of years for young adults, because sometimes the pain of the past still lingers. They still are worried about making anybody upset. They don't want to seem like they're not doing it fair. And so, anybody listening, if you've got kids in high school, as you're approaching those college years, I would say try to start thinking about it in a way that gives them freedom to walk in their life, enjoy college, enjoy whatever's next. And it probably won't be the same as it's always been, but let them know, it's okay if we see you, on November 29th instead of Thanksgiving, or we'd love to see you and celebrate Christmas, but it doesn't have to be the way we've always done it. But kids that I work with who have become college students, they will tell me that they literally stop going home for the holidays. They will find other things to do. They'll go with friends to their house because they don't want to disappoint everybody when they come home.
You just answered, Tammy, the question that I've been wanting to ask, which is to share some of the resources. This has been gold you've been giving us today. Share some of the resources that people can reach out and receive: videos, books, website, etc.
Okay. Yeah. Well, most of it you'll find at co-parentinginternational.com. We have a really cool video course called One Heart, Two Homes: Co-Parenting Kids of Divorce to a Positive Future. It's available in English and Spanish. It's 10 videos that dig deep into all these topics we've been talking about. And it's great for parents. It's great for grandparents, for professionals or pastors or leaders who volunteer in the church and help families through these topics. The course is for anybody. And then we actually have, for professionals, like for counselors and folks that maybe do more professional work with families, we have a resource called the Co-Parenting Strategist. And it's a 10-hour, 16-session certification that's a real deep dive into how to work with complex families. And then the book that I wrote is called Co-Parenting Works: Helping Your Children Thrive After Divorce. It's available through our website, through Amazon. There's also an audio book, and that was originally published with HarperCollins and Zondervan. And I hope sometime in the near future, we will have that available in Spanish, either audio or written. So we're working on that with grants and fundraising, trying to get some of those things done. But like I mentioned earlier, my husband and I are both available to do one-on-one work with individuals, with couples. We do a lot of couples work as a couple, Jay and I. He's also a marriage and family therapist and a former pastor. So we work with couples together as blended family couples. And then we each will also work with kids, individuals, and co-parents who are trying to figure out how in the world do we, find a healthier way through the mess we're in. And that is my most sacred work, is to help parents recognize there's a lot that can be done to heal and help your child. A wonderful experience between divided families. It's not all bad news. And there are some things you can do. And even if it's just one parent, it can really make a big difference.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for being with us today. So appreciative for your time and your ministry.
Well, thank you. And I want to, if I could end with a short story of my life now. I shared at the beginning about the year 2000, going through divorce. Truly thought life was over. There was nothing God could do with me in my messy life. Thought I'd kind of have the big D engraved on my forehead and would live in that hurt forever. And I want to say on the other side, now, years later, my daughter that we share, she gained a stepmom at age 5, a stepdad at age 9. She's the youngest of, she got 6 step siblings. And I am so excited to say that her dad walked her down the aisle when she got married in the year of 2021. And he walked her down the aisle while my husband Jay played a song he wrote for her. And we had a beautiful celebration and a wedding of her and Jackson that was not about us. It was all about those 2 young people that love Jesus and love each other. And I share that because sometimes parents are so concerned that, by getting divorced or being divorced, that their child is doomed to never have a healthy marriage of their own. And I say that is not true. And that parents who love the Lord, you can uphold the vision and hope that marriage matters and that marriage is for a lifetime. You can share that with your kids, whether you remarry or not, and you can point them to the truth. And our daughter is happily married almost 2 years now. Her and her husband are both in full-time ministry. And I am absolutely sure they're going to be in it for life. There's no question about them not having what they need to make their marriage work. And so one of the benefits of co-parenting is you release your child from your own pain. You let them thrive in their walk with God. And when they stumble, you cheer and you help them along the way, but you point them towards a lifelong marriage with a happy ever after. Don't stop talking about God's plan for lifelong marriage, even if they're in a divorced family, because God is bigger than that. And his story is always being written. And there are many, many kids who grow up and have great, stable adult lives. And even though they came from, people do use the phrase broken home. And I will say my daughter, Angelia, when she was in college, she called me one night and said, Mom, all these students that I'm meeting in my dorm, about half of them are from broken homes and they introduce themselves that way. And I said, yeah, sweetie, that's about the statistic. She said, but Mom, I have never even thought about myself as being somebody from a broken home. And I would never introduce myself and that be the beginning of my story. And I said, well, Angel, what do you say? She said, Mom, I just say I'm Angelia. I have 4 amazing parents. I have 6 step siblings and I have a huge family that loves me. And I can tell you when we set our hurts aside and we process that in a healthy way and we choose to let our kids live free between us, then their own identity, they can truly feel like they're whole. They won't even grow up and call themselves broken.
Such great words. And I loved that. Release your child from your pain. It's setting them free to love and free to have healthy lives and know that it is absolutely possible to have. And just thank you again so much for being with us today. And if you enjoyed the podcast discussion today, please share it with a friend and give us a positive review on iTunes.
And please visit our website, musicforthesoul.org, where you can stream or download every song in our catalog, read our lyrics, our healing music guide, our blog posts, and much more. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.
Candyland, Spider-Man, silly songs and dancing. The way we laughed and we can hardly breathe. Cuddle up, snuggle bug, tell me how you're feeling. Let me lullaby you off to sleep. We're still a family, and that's never gonna change. Although your world is different now, my love is the same. I'm still your mommy, precious child, please believe. Nothing can separate you and me. We're still a family. Summer hikes, riding bikes and cheering at your ball games, building forts with blankets and chairs, movie nights and tickle fights. There'll still be bedtime stories tuck you in, and then we'll say our prayers. We're still a family, and that's never gonna change. Although your world is different now, my love is the same. I'm still your daddy, precious child, please believe nothing can separate you and me. We're still a family. We're all trusting God to help us make it through. You know you got a mom who would do anything for you. We've got photos on the fridge of happy times we share. Here is one of you and Dad. He's always welcome here. We're still a family, and that's never gonna change. Although your world is different now, our love for you is still the same. We're still your mommy, still your daddy, precious child, please believe nothing can separate you and me. We're still a family, and that's never gonna change. Although your world is different now, our love for you is still the same. I'm still your mommy, still your daddy, precious child, please believe nothing can separate you and me. Nothing can separate you and me. We're still a family.